Welcome back to the Gracefully Wild Soul podcast. I'm so thankful to be back here with you today on this episode this week. Today, we are going to talk about the medicine of women, and more specifically, the medicine of women's retreats. I am fresh off of a retreat in Glastonbury, England. I just arrived home yesterday. And I'm still integrating the whole process and everything that we moved through and did on the retreat. But today, I want to talk a little bit about just the growth and the medicine that you gain when you go on a women's retreat. And I'll talk a little bit about the specifics of the recent retreat that I was on. But I'm also going to just kind of look at and reflect on the other retreats that I've been super fortunate to have been on and how I walked away from these experiences in a way that I couldn't replicate in the same way in my day-to-day life. So let's dive into it. Welcome to the Gracefully Wild Soul podcast. I'm Kirsten, a mother and soul guide, and this is a space where your soul is witnessed and the frequency of your heart is felt. Together, we will have intimate conversations about the essence of life, the beauty of your soul's path, and our evolution as women and as mothers. Through channeled words, lived experiences, and the wisdom of nature's rhythms, the soul, and the sacred feminine, this is where the gracefully wild woman begins to rise. All right, women's retreats. Oh, they're so magical. I'm just going to say that. They are so magical and they are incredibly transformative. If I were to, hand you one piece of advice of how you can accelerate your personal growth in any way, it really would be going on a women's retreat. I think that it is such a necessary rite of passage as a woman to gather with other women in a space and time in which your only focus is yourself and the group that you are in, really shutting yourself off from the outside world and stepping into this space. It would be a women's retreat. So I've been fortunate to have been on 3 official women's retreats that were several days long. The one I just came home from in Glastonbury was approximately 4 days. And I've been on another retreat in Mount Shasta, California, which was also about 4 days. And one before that, I went to Bali for my 40th birthday, which was a little bit different type of retreat. It was a yoga surf retreat. So not quite the same container, not quite the same intent. But let me tell you, the first, as the first go around for our first timer, it was perfect. It was great. It was just this beautiful little space that was created by the retreat center, and it was structured in such a lovely way. And so I'm really grateful to kind of have dipped my toes into this retreat idea in that space in Bali. So women's retreats, why I think they are so incredibly important is for a couple reasons. The first being, as I kind of touched upon, is that when you step into a retreat, you are gifted the opportunity to really condense the work that you are being called to do into this time period. If you are able to, not everybody is, but ideally, when you step into a retreat like this for 4 days, you're able to really shut yourself off from the outside world. That means you're not in this persistent checking of emails or the news or social media, or even with kind of your family space. Not to say that you shouldn't or you couldn't. I certainly do touch base with my husband and my kids when I go on these retreats, but you're not in the thick of that in the way that you are in your day-to-day life. And that really is the invitation for a retreat. And for 4 days, this is available to you. And it's available to most people to be able to, in some form or some capacity, to really close yourself off from what's happening in the outside world. And when you're able to do that, this ability to really kind of hone in is what the retreat is offering you. You're able to dive deep into the work that maybe you do on the outside world, when you're at home and you have your practices, etc. Maybe you're doing it, maybe you're not. But when you're in this retreat space and you're turning yourself off from the outside world and the long list of obligations, etc., you can give the time and attention to what you are working through in a way that you are unable to do that in your day-to-day life. And that is a gift. That is a true gift. And what this allows you to do, the opportunity that's given to you in this moment is that you get to go super deep. You get to be intimate with what you need to work through. And honestly, when you don't have the pile of dishes and you don't have the laundry or you don't have the work emails, you have nowhere to escape. Sometimes in our day-to-day life, when we have all of these things, they're distractions. They're allowing us to either numb or escape what we actually need to invest ourselves and our time and energy into, which really is ourselves. And so when you're in this retreat bubble, you're in this container, you're gifted this opportunity to hone in and focus on a very intimate and deep level. And that can be hard, because it's not something that we're able to do most of the time, right? And so to give yourself the chance and the opportunity to do it and then actually follow through with it can be challenging. But what this allows you to do, which kind of brings me to, my second point, is you're able to accelerate your self-growth in a 4-day period, which on the outside world and your day-to-day life might take you 10 years. And I am not exaggerating. And it doesn't mean that you are kind of rubber stamping and just, quickly getting through something at the retreat. It means that you're actually forced to face the stuff that you haven't wanted to face. And when you are forced to do that in this time period, in this bubble, you are able to accelerate the growth that maybe you could only take in these bite-sized pieces in your outside world because you have all of this other stuff happening. And so for people that are looking to change their timeline, and let me explain kind of what that means. When I left the profession of the law, I made a change in my timeline. Now, there were certain things that happened along the way that helped accelerate me to get to that point. But ultimately, when I look back, I could have stayed on. I could have kept going in that space in a different capacity. I made a decision to do something different. I jumped timelines. I wanted to accelerate where I knew I was meant to go. And so certain decisions came along with that. Some of them might have been, pushed along a little bit by the universe. And others were conscious decisions. And so when you go into a retreat, you are, again, given the opportunity, the chance to shift your timelines. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to leave your job. That's just an example. It could mean, moving somewhere. It could mean starting a new project. It could mean, whatever it is that you're calling into your life. But you get to make the conscious choice to root into the energy and prepare yourself to move into the next phase in a way that in your day-to-day life would have taken you a lot longer to be prepared to move into. And so that's why I think women's retreats in general are so potent. They're so, so powerful. They really accelerate your growth. They give you the chance to dive in. Now, you have to be open. If this is not a vacation, let's just be clear about that. Retreats are not vacations, at least the retreats that I go on. Certainly there can be retreats that, are called retreats, but they end up being a bit more of kind of a vacation environment. The retreats that I'm talking about, the retreats that I go on, they are focused on growth. They are focused on you evolving. And you're doing that in a held and safe place with other women who have the exact same intent. They're not there to play small. Let's be real. They're not there to play small. People that go on women's retreats are not here to play small. They're ready and willing and open to do the work, to grow, to evolve, even though that means stepping into a place that's challenging. Even if it means we're being reflected back something that we have been avoiding. So when you walk into a retreat like this, that is the mindset that you have. The third point of why women's retreats offer so much medicine is that when you are in a room of women, you just get each other. You just get it in an unspoken way. Every retreat that I've gone on, you walk into the room and every single one of the women are coming from a different place around the world. They are coming from a different background. They are coming from a different career, a different family dynamic, a different place of where they want to grow and evolve. We all have our differences. We all have a unique flavor. But ultimately, when you're in a room full of women, there's an unspoken understanding of one another. And that is powerful. That is incredibly powerful. That gives you, once again, this place, this space to be seen, to be heard, to be free with yourself, to evolve and grow. Because you know that, one, these women have come to this retreat with that same intent that you came with, ready and prepared to evolve and change. But also they come with similar experiences and perspectives. And they're there not to step on your experience. They're not there to tell you that your experience is wrong or where you're going is wrong. They're there to hug you when you're crying. They're there to offer love and guidance from their own experience, allowing you to take with you what resonates, what feels good. They're not there to judge you or compare themselves. They're simply there to be the mirrors, to be the mothers, to be the nurturers that you need and ultimately that they need in that time and in that space. There is this unspoken understanding that happens among women. And that kind of moves me into my next point about women's retreats, is that we have this underlying foundation of similarity that we are all working with. And that is because in our bodies, in our seasons, in our cycles, we have this underlying understanding of each other. One of the themes that was raised more so on this recent retreat in Glastonbury, and it's something that I very much connect with and work with are the seasons and cycles that we go through as a woman. And we have kind of this umbrella, this overreaching energy and cycle that we move through as women. We have this maidenhood that we move through. We have motherhood, whether you actually bear children or not. And we have our crone phase. So these 3 phases, also known as the triple goddess, we move through these cycles as women. And as lovely as men are, they don't have this same experience. They don't have this same energetic cycle that we have as women. And, that overarching cycle that we experience as women is then tied into our biology. It's tied into our bodies. And you get even more granular. It's tied into the seasons of what we move through on Earth in nature. It's tied to the moon. And so there is this, again, unspoken experience, unspoken language, unspoken physical understanding of one another when you're in a room of women. And that's super potent because in the outside world, maybe you, like me, don't have that same experience with either women or men. There are many women out there that don't connect in that way. They don't understand this kind of season or this cyclical nature that we have, and they're disconnected from it. Men don't have that same experience internally, and so they have a difficult time relating or understanding to what that looks like or feels like. And we live in a world and a society that shames us out of this experience or completely tries to segregate us or separate us from this experience. And so when you're put into a room, into a container for 4 days with women that are moving through their own season individually, but then ultimately together as a group, you're moving through this other kind of overarching season or energy, there's just this unspoken understanding. And it's just so powerful to be able to feel so connected to your inner landscape, your body, and to the other women in the room, and ultimately other women around the world. And so the other piece that I just am so obsessed with when you're in a women's retreat is there's just this, there's this spiral that exists among women. And I think part of that comes from this archetypal energy that we are bringing to the room and the conversation of, maiden, mother, crone. And the recent retreat I was just on, I was the youngest person. I'm 42 going on 43. I was the youngest. The oldest was around 80. That is the juiciness of the experience that the women in this retreat in the room were bringing to the table. And in this spiral, this space of we are moving together, we're moving around with one another, we're swirling like the universe, like the universe that we live in, right? The solar system that we live in, the Milky Way galaxy. No woman in this retreat was attempting to step upon one another, to step above. That is not the space. It doesn't exist in that retreat space. Women that walk in the spiral, women that come together with this collective understanding that together we are better, allow you to have your personal growth. They gift you the opportunity to move forward and grow, in whatever ways you're growing, while also holding you, also supporting you, not trying to compare themselves, not trying to step on your story or speak over you or one up you. And there's plenty of that out in the world. But in a women's retreat, we hold respectful space. We allow for love and nurturing when it is asked for or needed. We do not force. We do not direct. We do not try to attempt to have power or authority over one another. We are a collective microcosm, a living being, working independently and together at the same time. And this is truly the way of the matriarchy. This is how the matriarchy moves. When women come together and they operate from this place that we are all on this horizontal plane, we are not on this vertical plane, we are able to literally move mountains, create, birth, support, nurture, love, hold community, grow things. It's so, so powerful. And when you're in a room of women and you have this foundational understanding of one another and how we truly together are greater, you can grow that much faster. And so that is another reason why women's retreats are so incredibly powerful. Something I reflected on this morning, really looking at the age gap of the retreat I was just on. 40, I'm 42 to almost 80, almost 40-year difference. There was not a single woman in the room that tried to give me quote unquote life advice or send some sort of message that they've been through it and I haven't. There was none of that. Wisdom is shared, not compared. In a room full of wise women, there is no talking down to. There is no, my pain is greater than your pain. It doesn't exist. Rather, we are each there to cultivate, to help grow ourselves individually, but also in a way that we know in this space, in this room, that we are going to be able to do that better when we have each other, loving and supporting one another through that phase, through that moment, through that difficult conversation, through the vulnerability. We're all there able to cry and express and sing and dance, move freely. That's the power of being in a room full of women. It just shows me, as it shows, I think, the world, that community among women is a living organism. It's not found in the singular. It's not found in the I. It's found in a collective. This is the way of women. This is the way of nature. Diversity allows us to grow and bloom. It is what is essential to not only our survival, but to our thriving nature, to our growth. And these diverse experiences that each of these women come through with, which, again, most of the women on the retreat that I was just on were in their crone phase. And there's so many women out there, they're like, I don't want to be with, maybe it's the opposite. I don't want to be with somebody that's X, Y, and Z young, or maybe it's, I don't want to be with someone that's X, Y, and Z, quote unquote, old. And it's this kind of separation mentality out in the world that creates this division between women. It creates this barrier to understanding that we each have an important and essential place in this microcosm, that we are all together as one, and we can honor our own journey and our own experience without shuddering or putting down another woman, another person. I look at this experience that I just went through, and the prior experience that I went through in my retreat in Mount Shasta, and just see that the tapestry is like the ocean. There are so many species of seaweed, or so many species of fish, other beings in the ocean. And they all are essential to each other. And so I feel so enriched every time I walk away from a women's retreat, knowing that not only am I safe and held in my own body, my own experience, but I know that there are other women out there in the world that I just spent this beautiful time together, and know that they have me. They are holding me. We're holding the vision for one another. And that is the power and the medicine of women when we come together. And we can build anything. One of the incredible kind of visions that I had during this retreat that really manifested itself in the retreat itself, we were meant to go through this sweat lodge ceremony, this experience, and the structure was meant to already be built for us. And there was a change of plans, and us as the women together on this retreat built the lodge together. We shifted, we flowed, we accepted that this was the medicine that we all needed. We needed to disassemble an old structure, and we needed to build a new one together. And we each had a role. We each had a kind of, duty in putting this together, in bringing it together, being an architect, measuring, building, cleansing, holding the fire, creating the fire, praising one another, offering assistance and help. We each had a place in creating and doing this. And it was so incredible to see all of these women come together, build something by hand, to communicate in a thoughtful manner, to work through challenges, knowing that we're not there to, blame someone or point the finger or try to harm someone. We are there with a singular, collective, unified purpose. That is, again, just the power of women working among, with, and for one another. And that was just so incredibly potent and powerful and present in this recent experience that I had. So yeah, I'm a fan. What can I say? I'm a fan of women's retreats. I think they're so, so incredible. And I think that it's a reminder that this thread is missing in our outer society. And I truly believe the more that women engage in this practice of coming into a safe and held container to grow within, but also grow in this community of women, that we are going to be able to be that thread to the outside world, that we are going to be able to be the bridge to help that grow in the way that it needs to grow in society. And that was such a huge theme for me during this last retreat, is being the bridge. Being the bridge. The world and the society that you want to live in, you are able to make change. None of us is insignificant to make change. We need to stay committed to that change. We need to gather with other women to help manifest that change. And so if you've ever thought about going on a women's retreat, and especially if you're a mom, I know it's super easy to get into this I can't, kind of mentality of schedules and can my, significant other work it out while I'm gone, or logistics of life. Take the trip. Go on a women's retreat. You will not regret it. I promise you. The medicine of women is strong. It is beautiful. It is powerful. And it is a reminder to each of our inner woman that we hold this within us and that we get to be the thread and the bridge between that power, that beautiful spiral of life, how we hold each other, how we move and weave through life together in order to help create the world that we all want to live in, that we want our children to live in, is available to us. So go on the trip, book the women's retreat, just do it. All right, friends, that is it for this episode. I am so excited to see you on the next episode. If you get a chance, please rate, review the podcast. That helps the podcast grow and allows me to continue to evolve. All right, I will see you on the next episode. Thank you, love, for being here. May you walk forward guided by the wild wisdom of your soul and the truth of your heart. To find me beyond the podcast, you can join my newsletter at soulbabe.com for continual updates on offerings and other teachings, or subscribe to the Gracefully Wild Soul Substack. Until next time.